Good evening and welcome to the FITT Show, financial information for today and tomorrow. I'm Bobby Kinzer,
And I'm Thomas Doty.
and we are the FITT Show, trying to help our people get their finances in shape. How are you today, Dope?
I am absolutely fantastic. Celebrated
Yes.
Mama's 103rd birthday yesterday. Life's good.
103rd birthday?
103rd.
Good gracious, man. What does that make? What year does that make her born
Oh,
in?
it's easy. 1920. She was born.
1920. Good Lord. Woo.
Long time.
She's seen a lot.
Yeah.
A whole lot. Well, welcome you everybody out there in virtual world across the United States of America and even across the seas in England and Scotland and even some of our friends down in Australia. Thank you for tuning in. This is the FITT Show, and we are discussing financial issues that we hope that you will be able to use and share with your family to increase your wealth and to increase your understanding of what's going on out in this crazy market and this crazy economy. And we thank you for tuning in. Like
Hey, Bob,
always, yes,
ask if anybody has much static. Whenever you talk, there's static. See if anybody else has that.
you and I have it listening to you.
Okay, maybe I'm going to go out and come back in.
It might be me too.
It's whenever one of us talk. Whenever you talk.
Yeah, well, won't you try going out and come back and hopefully
Okay, I'll do that right now.
Yeah. So everybody, sorry about the technical difficulties. This is beyond our controls. That's what happens when you rely on technologies. So hopefully we can get this straight. But thank you all for tuning in. Dope will be back in a minute. Last week we had a wonderful show, and our show last week was keeping cool during volatile markets. So if you missed that, you can go out there in the archives on Facebook Live and on YouTube and check it out. And I'd like to say, oh man, we got Pat Saint. It was Pat Saint Hill Stimson. Thank you for tuning in. Where are you? Are you in England, Pat? Put in the comment box. Are you still in England, or you? But you could be in England and Spain or anywhere with you and your husband. So let me know where you are. So Dope. Last week got a lot of conversations about keeping cool in this crazy market, especially with all the banking uh, events that had occurred. And this is calming down a little bit. But we'd like to start off our show at the top of the market with everybody's favorite subject at the top. Let's talk about the stock market.
And this is one of those, you look at the week's activity and it doesn't seem like much has happened, but it's been really on a roller coaster this week. There's been big drops and big increases, but the net is pretty much not much has happened. If you look at the week, the Dow is up. It's down 141 points. Nasdaq's up 70. Microsoft's up a couple. Tesla's had a big move. They're up 8 points to 4.3%. I think I told you, Bob, they were actually made a blue chip company by Moody's, which is kind of interesting, and that means their credit rating is better and it's improved, and that's kind of a good sign of just being a blue chip company. That means they're highly thought of, they're well thought of. They expect to, it's a good company it's expected to do really, really well. And it's really funny because they just got hit with a class action suit, not related to the crashes that you always read about. But this one is about their manipulation over their repair services. And the class action suit states that they have designed their cars so people can't fix them themselves. And I mean, I am totally worthless when it comes to fixing a car. I don't think I could fix any of the cars they make now. They're so complicated. I wouldn't even try. But anyway, so a blue chip stock. What is a blue chip stock? It's a large, valuable company. It's well established and it's considered blue chip, like the top of the top. That would be like a Boeing, a Nike, or American Express. So that's a positive for Tesla. And the other one I wanted to mention was, Apple's kind of hung tough through all this, and so is Microsoft. But they've had big drops, big increases. Whenever there's any talk about interest rates going up or it actually happens, those stocks go down. Whenever there's positive news, those tech stocks all go up, and they go up fast. And so, and Pfizer's pretty much, exemplifies what not much has happened. It was at 40 a week ago and it's at 40 now. So as we always tell you, just stay the course. And one thing I wanted to mention, if you look back 3 years ago, okay, and you say, what was the stock doing when we had the pandemic and it hit that big bottom 3 years ago? And I don't know if anybody remembers it. And a guy like me and Bob, we remember it because we remember how much it was down. But again, it's just one of those things you look at and you say, it really exemplifies the fact that you should stay in the market, because since that big drop, I think with the S&P 500, since that drop 3 years ago, the S&P is up 76%. Okay. And the Dow is up 72% in 3 years. So it was around, what I tell you, about 19,000
Right.
3 years ago. And now the Dow is at 32. And, people forget that 3 years ago, how much it's increased in that time. But when it drops 1,000 points now, people have a heart attack and are ready to sell. And I never want to be in stocks again. But in the 3-year period, the market has really, really done well. So just to reiterate, it's about the long play. Things bad are going to happen. You just have to stick with it, live through it, and this too shall pass.
No, I just want to give another point of information. When the stock market went at its lowest during the pandemic was in March of 2020, it recovered within 3 months approximately. And that in history, if I'm right, was the biggest return bounce back in the market in market history.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole, like you say, up from 3 years ago to now, it plays into that, that the market's up. And that's why we always say it's always about the long play, you all. Unless you need money between a year, 2 years, and 3 years, then you might, question about risking it being in the market. But if you have some long-term goals, 5 years beyond, then you can weather when the market goes down, and when it goes up, it goes down. And over the time, you hope the high points outweigh the low points. That's just how it works. And just want to just remind people of that. But that was good information. But let's talk about my other favorite topic, cryptocurrency. Now, cryptocurrency is up. The market cap for cryptocurrency is now over $1.2 trillion, and it's up $102 billion. That's 9%. So if you look at the total crypto market, 9%, that's reflected within the individual cryptocurrencies. You can see in the Bitcoin is now $28,515. That's up $3,361. That's 13% from last week when it was at $25,000 per Bitcoin. So, for instance, if you had $100,000 in Bitcoin last week, this week you would have made $13,000. Like we said, it's highly speculative, and it goes like that. It goes up, it goes down. And there's no telling with cryptocurrency. It's so speculative. But I mean, but if you were in it in the last, let's say, month and a half, I think 1 week and a month and a half it was down. Each week it was going up because it was like a month and a half ago, it was at $16,000 for Bitcoin, somewhere around there. Ethereum, which is the number two cryptocurrency, which is built on smart contracts, it's up $146 to $1,825 an Ethereum cryptocurrency. That's up 9%. Tether is up 1% from 2 weeks ago. Last week, it's still holding that, and those are what they call stable coins, where they're tied to the dollar. And Dogecoin just went up from the number 9 position of all 9,000 cryptocurrency to the number 8 position. But it didn't, I mean, it looks like it didn't move, but it moved like about, 0.1%, which, no, 0.01%. You wouldn't see that growth in our charts because we're rounding to 2 decimal places over. But it moved up from the number 9 position, or even somebody moved down. And Shiba Inu is still that meme coin that everybody jumped in 3 years ago. It's still just tanking and trying along. So that's it for the crypto market, though. So, yeah, just want to talk to you about our topic this week, though, which is finding the right financial advisor.
Yeah, that's definitely easier said than done. And, the hardest part, figuring out where to start. What do? You got to decide if you need one and try to find the right one. And, picking the wrong one can be a huge mistake. And what this person should do is help you develop an overall personalized approach to figuring out how much money you have and building your financial future in a way that puts all the parts of your financial life together. And we oftentimes talk about all those different parts because there's taxes, there's insurance, there's who you're going to leave it to, there's a lot of different parts of your financial life, and your financial advisor should be in the middle of that, helping you tie all those things together, making sure all those different components are working together, and that you are indeed building wealth and not losing because you lose track of one of those particular parts that I just mentioned. And so to make the most of working with one, you got to come prepared to talk to them about your financial situation. And by that, we mean you can't go in with the attitude, well, I ain't going to tell him all my business. That's not the way to approach it. They have to know all of your information in order to be able to help you. Okay. So it's you have to discuss like your goals and what you want to accomplish all through your life. And right now, when we talk about that, if you're 40 years old, there's a lot of different let's call it points in your life that need particular attention. We talked before about when you're in that accumulation stage, when you're in that spend stage, or getting ready for retirement. There's a bunch of different areas that all require a different approach to how you deal with those. And so that's what your advisor should help you do. So they need the key information, and you got to be ready with a bunch of questions to ask.
So, Dope, before we even get into this any further, right, talked about what a financial advisor is and what he does and the financial process and the questions you should ask. Before we get into this, Dope, does everybody need a financial advisor?
And I think they do. Just that's a personal opinion, but Bob, I have many discussions about this, and it's interesting because most financial advisors don't actually beat the S&P 500 index. Okay, that's considered the market. When you hear the term S&P 500, and it's considered the market because those 500 companies represent how the market is moving. So when we say the S&P index has averaged 10 or 11% over the last 70 years, what we're saying is the overall market, if you took a piece of each of those 500 companies in proportion to their size and how they did, that represents the S&P 500. So when you hear us use the term the market, we're referring to the S&P 500. So I say all that to say 90% of advisors do not beat the S&P index. And whenever Bob and I talk about it, we always say, well, why the heck do you get an advisor if you can just put your money in the S&P index fund and beat most advisors? Well, that doesn't include how much they beat the advisors by. I'm sure some of them how much they beat the market by. I'm sure some of them beat the market by a lot. Some of them might be close to replicating the results from the market. But the thing they do or should do is help with all the aspects of your financial life that I just talked about a minute ago. Your taxes, your insurance, your estate planning, how much you should be saving, how much risk you should be saving, how much risk you should be taking given where you are in your financial life. So it's all those ancillary duties that a financial advisor should be providing to you. Now, I'm not saying they should be losing your money, so please don't misinterpret that. But just realize they may not beat the market, but they should be close and they should be providing you all those other services. So if you're going to be up on all the different things you should be up on, taxes, uh, wealth distribution, retirement, if you can be up on all of those and understand how to tie those together, yeah, you probably can get by without a financial advisor. And as much as Bob and I study the market and review different aspects of financial investing, we still feel we need that expertise of somebody to help us tie everything together because so many things change so often and it's hard to stay on top of everything. And then the other issue, and I think I've told you guys this before, when you come to a stage of life that you haven't dealt with before, a lot of times you may not make the right decisions because you've never dealt with it before. And like retiring, most of us only do that once. And so there's a lot of things you should know that a financial advisor should be able to warn you about: the Medicare payments, the how much money you'll spend in retirement, just all of those types of things. So I think they provide enough service where that if you're someone who doesn't want to try to stay up on everything, they could provide a service for you. But as we're going to discuss in a little bit, that doesn't mean because you have an advisor that you still don't have to know what's going on. For example, we're going to talk about how they use variables to project future earnings or future withdrawal or whatever. You need to understand what their estimates are based upon. So you have to have some financial understanding to make sure that what they're providing fits your particular situation. So I didn't answer your question, Bob, but you have to figure out if you feel your life is complicated enough where you need some help other than what you're willing to put into understanding all the different aspects of your financial life.
Well, though the other thing is too, I mean, if you do not have many assets or none at all, and you only have your 401k and your Social Security, then maybe you can get by without having a financial advisor. But this is the thing about a financial advisor: it takes away the emotions out of it. Because sometimes we get caught up in our emotions, our loss aversion that we talked about. We don't like losses and we tend to panic and make some bad decisions. So the question is so personal. If you ask me, and don't we believe if you do get professional help, it will help you. And when we say professional help, we're talking about people who are like certified and have designations, qualifications. But those are not the only people. If you know somebody that really is done well and you trust them, it's also good to talk to, if it's a family member or friend that's done well and proven to done well, it's okay to get advice from them too. The key is sometimes we don't know what we don't know. But seeking professional advice is a good thing, because especially when money is the number one cause of stress for most Americans, and that stress materially affects their overall well-being. From access to financial planning, if it's done right, it is quite literally essential to living well. Now,
And
choosing
Bob,
financial.
yeah, one more thing before we get going. And plus, I mentioned before, the situation changes so often. And as Bob said, you don't know what you don't know, but not knowing and making poor decisions can really cost you in the long run. So it's kind of like an insurance policy, but if you have a good one, it's worth it.
And choosing a financial advisor is one of the most important financial decisions that you can make, But remember, it still takes some work on your part. Like Dope said, you need to understand some of the basics of, financial management of your own financial situation. But partnering with the right financial advisor can help reduce your financial stress and give you confidence and security, today and in the future. Now you can ask these questions at your first meeting, or send them uh, in advance to advisor, before you're ready to meet them. So when it's time to meet your financial advisor, you will discuss current situation and create a plan to help reach your goals. It's natural to feel a bit unprepared because there are a lot of moving parts, what Dote explained. And discussing your finances with somebody new can be intimidating, especially if you're not sure which questions they ask. One of the things when I was a financial advisor, one of the hardest things, Dope, that I dealt with, especially, I don't know why, with Black folks, they didn't want to give you all the information. They felt it personal, or what I found, some people were faking it to make it. They had big homes and big cars, but they were in big debt, and they didn't want you to know, so they wouldn't tell you everything. But in order to do a good financial plan, you got to tell everything. You got to tell everything, else a person will not be able. A financial planner will not be able to really help you. But some people want to hoard the information because of pride, or just that they grew up being that way, where their parents didn't tell them financial information. But today we're going to discuss issues and you will want to explore before you hire someone to be your financial advisor.
Yeah, and the first point we need to make, the actual landscape for looking at advisors, there's no blueprint, okay? There's no standard advice for advisors, okay? And they might be certified, they might not be certified. They might have just passed a simple exam. And there's a whole lot of different ways to charge. It could be fee-based, it could be hourly, it could be based on uh, how much you have. Or if you have a certain amount, it's this amount. If you have way more than that, it's less. So is the flat fee perfect? Who knows? I mean, you have to look at your own situation, but you should be able to get quality advice from an advisor you can trust at a fair price. It's not impossible to do. And not all financial advice is created equal. So you got to remember that. But there are some questions you got to ask to make an informed decision. And one of the most is, how do you charge and how do you determine your fee? Okay, you need to understand that. And understand everything involved in that, and find out if I sign up with you and I decide to get out of my contract with you, is there a termination fee or an exit fee? Those are all the things you got to find out. You got to understand just exactly what services are they going to be providing. Is it going to be limited to just investment, or will they be really overseeing everything involved in your financial life? You need to understand their certification, and you also need to know whether they're going to be your dedicated advisor, or do they have a bunch of paraprofessionals who really handle you and they kind of oversee those. So those are the kind of questions you need to ask.
So what I found in my experience as far as providing financial advice was a million times clients spend their first meeting with their financial planner over explaining or justifying their prior financial decisions, right? Because sometimes they made some bad ones and they want to sit up there and be on the defense of why they made them. But know that your financial professional is not there to judge you, only to help you. So know what you don't know. To expedite your conversation, put your mind at ease. You may want to learn about of some issues beforehand, like understanding insurance and what your policies protect and don't protect. Establishing and funding emergency account, knowing the difference between your good debt and your bad debt, and considering your estate planning needs. Go in there and try to have some knowledge because they're going to help you, but sometimes financial advisors will use terms that you didn't know. And to ease your mind, it's good to do some pre-work before you go in.
Yeah, and let's talk about what your first meeting would be like. And usually you're going to discuss your planning process. We always talk about that. That's something that's never going to go away. You should be talking about what you plan to accomplish over your lifetime. And it should be broken up into, let's call it specific parts of your life, okay, depending on where you are. And because the plan is different in each of those different stages of your life, obviously. And he knows he should know his first step is to discuss his services, and they should provide you and give you information on their background, explain how you're going to pay for it. They may give you referrals of who they've worked with. They may show you their results compared to the S&P, and hopefully they're honest and you're getting good information. And again, they should discuss if there are any conflicts of interest, because a lot of times they may be selling products where they get a piece or a higher percentage of certain products. And so you don't want them just selling things that they may make money on that may not be best for you. So those are the kind of things you should make sure are discussed in your first meeting.
So listen up, everyone, because some people may be on tonight and probably saying to themselves, I don't care what Dope and Bob is saying. I'm not going to be getting no financial advisor. And you know what? That is fine. But the things that we have said and about to say are going to be things you need to be doing, whether you have a financial advisor or not. For
Right.
instance, the financial planning begins with understanding your situation. Once you agree to the scope of the financial planning engagement, including any conflicts or interests, the next step is for your financial advisor to begin providing financial planning. The first job is to gather information about your current finances, which you should do anyway, and overall personal circumstances. See, that's the difference between, just investing into, index fund, but index fund don't take into account your other personal issues and circumstances. You might discuss issues such as your risk tolerance and your exposure to longevity, economics, your liability, your healthcare risk. This is the time for your planner to get to know all about you, and hopefully you will understand your own situation so that you can explain it.
Well, you guys know my favorite subject is setting your goals. You got to do that. And once they know your situation, then they can help you figure out what your goals are. And they know it's important for both of you to be on the same page. It's critical that you two are on the same page, because he's going to devise his whole program based on what your goals are. And that's also going to include what your risk tolerance is. And so you guys need to be on the same page about what's important to you, so he can build your plan from that point on.
Analyzing your strengths and vulnerabilities. That's the next step your financial planner or professional will want to analyze. You want to look at your vulnerabilities, which you should be looking at all the time anyway, because they change. Your current financial situation and course of action and potential alternative courses of action. Like depending on your personal circumstances, this includes your cash flow, money coming in, asset protection, protecting your assets, retirement planning, emergency fund, or other financial data. You want to know if you are on track or if you need to make some adjustments. You need to understand your strengths and your vulnerabilities.
which is easier said than done, right, Bob?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Then
It's
he
tough.
should, huh?
It's tough, but I mean, you got to do it.
Right. The next thing he's going to do is develop your personal plan. And believe me, it should be extremely personal to you. And so he should be able to give you options that are perfectly laid out for you. And he's going to do financial modeling. He's going to use assumptions for your life expectancy, tax rates, investment returns. And again, that's where you need to have some expertise so you can make sure that those estimates, because those are pure estimates, but a big discrepancy in those could have a very profound effect on the results that you see. And so his responsibility is to develop those recommendations, which should be designed to maximize how much you make and help you reach your goals. And so it isn't just about finances. And that's where I think he can play a key role. It's about your entire life, your health, planning for future generations. And that's where the whole trust and income or wealth distribution comes in. There's so many aspects of this whole plan.
So, the next step in your financial planning process is, the planner presents the recommendations. Now, when your financial professional presents the financial planning recommendations to you, this is when you have the opportunity to provide feedback, ask questions, and discuss adjustments to the plan. And now I want to let you know the difference between a very good financial advisor or professional uh, advisor is that it's a comprehensive plan. Some of these, like back in the day, A.L. Williams, not the, and y'all remember that insurance company, they got into financial planning, but it was just a boilerplate. They would just put your numbers into a template and press the number, and it will press and tell you what certain numbers and what, bonds and but not taking into your personal situations. So when you get these recommendations, as you and your professional work together to finalize the steps you will take toward reach your goals, it's important for you to know the reasons for the recommendations. Now, Dode has mentioned this early on, where you need to understand when the financial advisor are using assumptions and certain estimates to come up. Like I said, if it's just a boilerplate, they just throw it in a template, no matter who it is, and they press a number, and it just extrapolates numbers and forecasts, just adding certain percentages out of the sky. No, that's not a good financial plan, a good financial advisor. A good financial advisor is going to provide you with assumptions and estimates that he can support. And when you need to take action, he will let you know, how to implement your plan. This is what happens in the stage of, presenting the recommendations.
Yeah, and right before you want to hit the go button, you will have an opportunity to review those recommendations, okay, of what the financial planner is going to be doing. And you should review it, obviously, before you hit that go button. And so you'll have the opportunity to talk to him before he actually makes your selections, which is, it might be purchasing X number of stocks or purchasing X number of mutual funds or whatever the situation should be. So this is your last chance before you move forward. You take a look at everything and say, hey, does this make sense? And this is his plan. He gives you his plan, and this is your last chance to review it before you actually hit the button that says, okay, implement.
So the next stage is monitoring your performance. Once you've pressed the button and it's Now it's moving. You're starting to go into action. You need to expect a collaborative partnership. Now, financial planning is a collaborative partnership. If your planning agreement includes monitoring, then you will need to work with your professional to review the performance and progress of the plan through the time. Because the plan just doesn't work itself. You got to make sure you stay on top of it and make sure that you're implementing the things that the plan said. And part of this is knowing what your financial planner is responsible for doing and what you need to do, because that depends on the relationship, and you need to get that up front. How much they're going to be responsible for and how much you're going to be responsible for. And it's your job to let the financial planner know about the changes in your personal circumstances, such as a change in your employment or your family status. That may call for adjustments to your plan. Now, your planner's job is to keep track of the progress you are making to achieve your goals and to determine whether any changes or updates are needed. Now, throughout the process, your financial planner should be able to provide ongoing support, guidance, and education.
Okay, now next we're going to cover 10 questions to ask your financial advisor. And before we do, I hope nobody's thinking, man, this is too much work. I'll continue to handle it like I've been doing. And we've always told you guys, building wealth, it's not just luck. It takes a lot of hard work, and you don't do it without putting in the time and becoming financially literate, staying on top of everything. And so we hope we're not running anybody off with all the work it takes, even when you have a financial advisor, because as we said before, just because you have one doesn't mean you can just sit back and do nothing. If you have money, you need to be managing it. Okay, next we're going to give you 10 questions you should ask your financial advisor. And the first one, what are your qualifications and credentials? And you want to ask, is he certified? Do you stay up to date? And because one of the things with being certified, you have to keep up on current events. Typically you have a requirement to actually study X amount of hours per year to maintain your certificate. So you'd like to get someone who's certified, you'd like to get recommendations, you'd like to see how they've done in the past. And those are things you need to know before you hire somebody.
Dope. Before I go any further, Maddie has a question, and it's pretty good. She says, "So what happens when you go with this financial advisor and he or she started out really well, but then all of a sudden it starts going downhill? How do you get your personal information back?"
And that's a good one. When you say get your personal information back, does she mean you pull your money out and they still have your personal information, or how do you withdraw your money? Which of those are you talking about?
Yeah, we have to wait for it to hit us back. So this is assume that take either one of those, though.
Okay, and the first one, I mean, they in this digital age we live in now, they're going to have your financial information. If it's a reputable company, you have to hope they have the required tokenization to make sure that your information is safe. It's funny because I seem like every week I get a notice of there's been some kind of breach with some company that have been hacked by somebody. But you got to hope you're dealing with someone who's reputable, who will take care of your information. Because once they have your information, there's no way they're going to wipe it clean just because you pull your account out. Now, it may be, I know in my company, we had customers' information. If we didn't have activity over a certain amount of time, we would purge that customer's information, and it might be after 2 or 3 years. And so I'm sure other companies have something similar, just so they don't have these massive lists of customers that don't have any activity. Okay, so that's the situation if you're just talking about your financial information. If you're talking about withdrawing your money, uh, most firms have what's called, like if it's an IRA, they have you can just do a transfer. And some firms charge small administrative fees. Some firms don't. And again, that's one of those things you need to understand up front about how do I get my money out if I decide to change, if I decide to no longer use your services. And that can vary by company.
And so, and then the other thing is, Matty Ford, when you sign the agreement, especially if there is a fiduciary agreement, it should be an agreement how they are going to protect your information. And that's something that you need to look at when you sign it. And then, like we said earlier, we talked about you need to look and see is there exit fees for you to get out. And those should be in all agreement. Thanks, you, man. That was an excellent question, by the way. And Dope, my sister Gloria said, "Happy birthday to your 103-year-old mom." Dope, God bless her. Thanks, Glo.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's good. So Dope, next question: what services do you offer? There's credentials, there's licenses, and backgrounds are all factors that determine the services an advisor can offer. So if you have a CPA that's providing, financial information and about not just taxes, but also doing financial planning, there's going to be a fee associated with the particular credentials that they're using. So you need to ask them, what are they charging, and what are they offering.
And a very important point you should find out is, will they have a fiduciary duty to you? Okay. And what that means is they put your interests above theirs or anybody else's. That means they only act on your behalf. They do what's best for you. And some firms don't have that situation where theirs is to their company or theirs is to making money. And so you should know whether their fiduciary responsibility is to you. And me, I would insist on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, every company doesn't do that, but a lot of firms they'll have a fiduciary contract where they sign to the fact that they're responsible for providing, safeguarding your information and providing you information that is for you. So the next question is, what is your approach? You asked the question, what is your approach to financial planning? Meaning, ask the advisor if he or she will create a comprehensive financial plan. Remember I talked about earlier, there's boilerplate plans where they just throw numbers into a spreadsheet and they push a button and it just calculates the numbers, doesn't take in consideration your personal circumstances and your personal financial goals. You need to ask them, what is their approach to financial planning?
Yeah, and you also want to find out what type of clients do they typically work with, and hopefully it's someone like yourself. Uh, for example, I look at my situation as being a retired person with with um, with money saved versus my kids who are uh, the two that are married are double income, high wage earners. Their situation is totally different. So you just would think someone who's used to working with retired people is going to have a certain approach versus someone who mostly works with young people who are in that accumulation stage of their life. So find out who they work with. And again, don't be afraid to ask for referrals, recommendations. And I know a lot of the kids now look at Google for reviews and stuff like that, but don't be afraid to ask for that type of information and understand what type of clients they are most common, what type of clients they most commonly work with.
Kitty asked, should I use a financial advisor at my bank? And that's a personal decision, Kitty. But like what we're saying with all these things, that you should check and make sure that they are qualified, because this is the situation with some financial advisors that work at banks or work at a financial institution that sells products. Sometimes they're trying to push products as opposed to providing you a personal tailored financial plan that's for your situation. So, I mean, that question is, yeah, if it's a good advisor, if they meet the litmus test that we talk about, I have no problem with using a financial advisor at your bank. It's just that you make sure you ask these questions that we're talking about. What fees are they charging? Are they going to have fiduciary responsibility where they're making sure they're doing it for you and not for the bank? That would be my take, though. Do you have any comments on that?
No, I agree with it 100%. And for example, I use Fidelity, and they a lot of times they'll mention things that they offer, and there'll be Fidelity items, and they'll also mention things that are outside of Fidelity that I can look at. And so I like the fact that I know Fidelity has a full uh, cachet of products to choose from, and I know they have pretty much everything covered within their own world, but they also offer things that are outside of just Fidelity. So that, and I'm not recommending Fidelity. It works for me. It
Right.
I'm very happy with what they do for me.
Fidelity is good. Let me tell you, Vanguard is good. T. Rowe Price is good, and we're not pushing either one of them. We're just telling you ones that we know, and I know because I've used them. And Maddie said so dope. Back to your point when you said earlier, Maddie said, so you really need to have other eyes look at everything before you sign an agreement. That's a lot of work trying to make sure you're being up in your financial plan. Phew.
And it is, but it's hard work having money. Okay, but I tell you what, it's harder being broke. You know,
Oh, no, it's easier being broke.
no, it ain't easy being broke. I've been broke, and it ain't easy.
Yeah, you got a good point there, though. But Matt, we hear what you're saying, and that's the thing. Uh, anything, and I know y'all have heard this before. Anything worth having is worth putting the time in, and usually take work, because if it was that easy, everybody be doing it. But yeah, and Maddie, and we're not talking about no legal document like you're trying to sign for a mortgage or anything where they got all this fine print and all of that. It should be pretty straightforward. This is what I'm gonna do for you, and this is what we are required to do, and we should do it. It should be straightforward, and no small print when it comes to financial advisors. But like everything, you just need to read and to make sure. But it's no rocket scientist here. It's not like I'm saying you signing for a car. It should be pretty straightforward. And if it isn't, then I'll start questioning Maddie right up front. If they got all this small print, that to me is a giveaway sign that I'm starting to worry. They're making it more than it needs to be. So,
And,
though, the next thing is,
before you go on, let me also just say, in any information you get, you got to consider the source. Okay, and Bob and I are both two of the most competitive people you will ever meet in your life, and so I'm looking, and I'm sure Bob is too, to make as much as I possibly can. Okay, I'm looking to maximize the money I have because I've always been in the money all my life. I was a financial person for all of my career. I did spend 1 year in sales, but for most of my career. But and so the effort we put into it is because we wanted to be rich. That was the goal. That might not be for everybody. Okay. And somebody may say, okay, I don't want to it's not worth it to me to put that much time and effort into it. And if I only have 60% of what somebody else may have who spends all their time and thoughts doing that, I'm okay with that. And so just that's how we think, but it may not be for everybody. But me, I want every penny I can get. I mean, I'm not going to steal it. I'm not going to steal it. I'm not going to lie or cheat anybody out of it. But I want to make as much as I can. I don't want to leave nothing on the table. And I don't think the time I put into trying to figure out how to maximize my wealth is too much. But it may be too much for somebody else. And that's something you'll have to answer for yourself.
Kitty said Chase Bank and Howard University cut the ribbon today for the new bank location on Howard's campus. HBCU, yeah.
Yeah, I just hope they ain't giving out credit cards.
And this is what I say, dope. And this is not a dig at Howard University, and it's not a dig at Chase Bank. So put this in perspective. But what I find so interesting, though, there's only 19 black banks in the whole United States out of 4,771 banks. And every Sunday, churches put about $1 million of tithes into a white bank that takes their money and, oh man, lights just went out in my house. Did you see that, dope? Something going on. But anyway, and they take it and use it to give it to people that do redlining and people who do gentrification. I never understood that. But anyway, I digress. Oh, Kitty said, dope, how did you define rich?
Well, that's interesting. I think my goal was to not have to worry about money when I retire. And so to me, that would kind of be my definition. And we're talking purely money. We're not talking quality of life or being happy. That's different. But I think rich is not having to worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, I don't have a job to lose, so I don't have to worry about losing my job. But just not having to worry about money.
I say rich. My definition of rich is being financially independent, where I feel I can, buy what I want to buy, even if I don't buy it. To me, having the money for it, to me, that's what rich. And that's a good question, because Kitty, that is so. What can I say? Ambiguous for, because it's from one person to another. Because I remember I asked the young people when I teach them, would you ever be rich or wealthy? Which is a trick question, because they're really both the same, but they thought they were two different things. Because when you hear rich, you think one thing. But anyway, let's continue with the questions. You need to ask, will you be the only advisor I'm working with? Now, what I mean by that, some companies, some advisors that work for financial institutions, they have a group of advisors in the consortium that handles your account. And you need to know that, because if you get in trust in him or her and they pass you on to somebody else because they have some other obligation, you want to ask that question: are you going to be the only person working with me, or are there going to be other people that you're going to be collaborative with my plan?
Yeah, you got to watch out where they're charging you the partner's fee, but you're getting the services from the apprentice. And so that gets into what you're saying, Bob. You want to make sure who's doing the work, and that gets into my next issue is, how do I pay? How will I pay for your services? You need to know if it's fee-based, if it's a percentage of investable assets. Do I pay quarterly? Do I pay annually? If I transfer before the next payment is due, do I still have to pay for that services? Those are the kind of, you need to know and you need to understand. I mentioned the exit fee before. You need to understand if there's one of those. You need to fully understand what the pay arrangement is, so there will be no confusion.
The next question you should ask is, how much do you typically charge? And the advisor should provide you with an estimate of possible charges based on the services that he or she will be utilized, the service that will be utilized, and any products that may be used to implement your plan. Yes, it may need more time or information as you go along, but he or she should be able to provide you with an estimate of what they're going to be providing, especially if you sit down and laid out everything and laid out the plan, and he provided the recommendations. They should be able to tell you, how much. Well, excuse me, let me back up. No, I'm getting ahead of myself. not knowing the specifics until the recommendation, but they should be able to give you an estimate, knowing some of the things that he's going to start providing in your plan. He or she can give you that estimate.
Yeah, and you got to ask them. I mentioned this before. Do other people gain from the advice you give? And by that I mean, if they sell an insurance policy or mutual fund, they may have a business relationship with that company, and they get a higher percent based on selling specific items. You need to be aware of that so you can know if they're pushing an item because it's good for you or because they get a higher commission. Make sure you ask that question.
So the next one is, have you ever been publicly disciplined for any unlawful or unethical actions in your career? Now, some people are like, whoa, yeah, information about financial advisors who are subject to the FINRA, which is who regulates the mutual fund industry, and also financial advisors and stockbrokers, by the way. And it's called the Financial Industry Regulatory Agency. Then you got the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, who is an oversight and is available through FINRA's website, FINRA, FINRA.org, or the SEC's Investment Advisor Public Disclosure Database. You just put in SEC. But you need to know these things. If they lie, you can have a suit against them if they took your information, but you need to know if they've been ever publicly disciplined for unlawful or unethical actions. That is a must. So with that, Dote, that's a lot of information. We know we gave as always, but it's good information, and we try to put it there where it can be easy and understandable. But if you have any questions, remember, you all can always put comments and ask us in the comment box. So, Dope, I want to take this to the video. And for some reason, Dope, it's not letting me do it. This is weird. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Yeah, technology's acting weird today, Dope.
It sounds like you're in the middle of a storm or something.
No, you know what it is, Dope? It's my big size 14 hitting the plug under the thing. I thought it was a storm, but no, I was kicking the plug that the lamp and everything was.
Okay, well, let's wrap it up. Let's things to leave you with.
Do it. Things
Okay.
to leave you with. Hold
And
on.
You got it?
Got it.
Well, it's not showing.
Okay. That's because, hold on. Like I said, modern technologies we got gremlins today, and it's messing with me.
Here we go. Okay. And the first one, the only thing that's constant is change. Things are going to continue to be different. Tax laws change. Your state and federal both change. The economic environment changes. You have to stay on top of that or have someone who's looking out for those things for you. You got to stay on top of things. We always tell you that. But things are going to continue to change.
The next one is all financial advisors are not created equal. What that means is you need to check because some financial advisors are just selling products. Some financial advisors have different philosophies. So you need to really understand, like I said, you need to ask them their approach. You ask them how they approach financial planning. So all advisors are not created equal, and you need to understand that because some of them don't have credentials and some do.
Remember, it's your needs, not their needs. Their needs may be able to churn money from you, but that won't help you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. You really need to understand your situation, focus on what you're trying to do, and make sure the plan that the advisor comes up with is what you need.
And the last one, though, is very near and dear to me because I did this and I did people's financial plans, and I come to address them later, a year later, 2, 3 years later, and they didn't even apply the plan. So this last summary is takeaway is the plan only works if you use it. I did a professional athlete, and I mean, we did a really comprehensive plan. He was making like $110,000. This is in the '80s, which was a lot. He was a rookie, and he was living on 100,000. So we approached him with, let's see, we ain't trying to have you live like a pauper, but what do you really need to live? And what we did, though, the plan actually came down to him living off of $30,000 and not
Okay.
110. And it was very great. And I know him by his comprehensive plan. I saw him 3 years later and asked him about the plan. He like, man, it's still in my drawer. So what I'm saying is, you know, the plan is not going to work itself once you go through all the time, energy, developing it. The plan is not going to work itself. You're going to have to make sure you implement the plan and you stay on top of the plan because there's always adjustments to be made to situations or whatever. So um, that's it. Oh, Kitty had a question. Should I kick Kitty's so funny. So should I kick him or her to the curb if they are negative about banks? Oh, that's funny, Kitty. Oh,
That's a tough one because I mean, there's so many different aspects, and when you say negative about banks, you mean they don't like dealing with banks, or I'm not sure what you mean by that. Do you know, Bob?
no, I don't, but I do know some. I know that the difference between banks and credit unions is banks are for profit and credit unions are not for profit, not nonprofit, not for profit. That's why it's membership. So that's why they're more concerned about the stakeholders than uh, commercial banks, which is for profit. And they all about the bottom line for the stakeholders. So I do know banks. If you're saying banks, sometimes people have an issue with banks because they for profit, and sometimes they charging exorbitant fees
And,
for.
and Bob, I'm negative towards banks. The only reason I use a bank because I have a checking account through my brokerage account, but I would not ever want to use my brokerage account to be the in and out account to pay bills with. So the only reason I even use a bank is just to have to put money in to pay bills and to keep my risk level low so as not to have too much money in one place that could be accessed through some sort of hack. Because I mean, I never go to a bank. Uh, the rates they pay are ridiculous. The fees they charge are ridiculous, and you can get much better fees and interest rates and services through your brokerage firm, who typically have a bank that in your they can use as part of your brokerage account. So I personally, like I said, the only reason I use a bank is to process bills. I put
Kind of
money in.
like an operating account.
Exactly. And only because I can keep that money to a minimum just to make sure my risk level for fraud or scams is small.
Yeah, that's good. But yeah, Kitty, I hope that answered your question. So as always, shout out to Maddie Ford, Modestine Johnson. Thank you for hanging in there, Modestine. She said happy birthday to your mother, though.
Oh, appreciate that.
Rodney Madison Sr., the noteexperience.com. My sister Linda, my sister Gloria, and now Dodie. Hello, now. So great that you join us. I love that when you, Penn State finest and Pittsburgh's finest. Joanne Skinner, my sister Nolia, my sister Gloria, and Kitty. Thank you for tuning in. And Joanne Skinner. Did I say Joanne? They gotta say Joanne. And Angela Grubbs Davis, who's
That's
another.
girl Angie.
Yeah, we're hanging there, Angie, with us. Thank you so much. Kitty, Kitty on fire today. Kitty said, You rich and have much more than the $250,000 insurance limit. That's funny, Kitty. See, she must be talking about you, though. See, Dash ain't talking about me. Look, y'all, thank y'all. We're here every week. This is our 93rd show. We're headed to 100. Thank you to all your people. We're here next week, 8 p.m. Daylight Savings Time. Share this information with your family and friends. The FITT Show, financial information for today and tomorrow. Have a good rest of the week.
Peace.
Peace.